Number 10. Gideon VORSTER. The professional snake catcher named Gideon VORSTER works in Limpopo, South Africa, where he works with one of the world's most dangerous snakes, the black mamba. Without treatment, a black mamba bite is guaranteed to be fatal and can kill a man within 30 minutes. An anti-venom exists but must be administered quickly after the bite happens to avoid lasting damage or death. VORSTER and another professional handler had just removed a black mamba from the ceiling of someone's home and were checking it for injuries when the deadly snake lunged and bit him twice on the hand. His colleague rushed him to the hospital, where he received the anti-venom on time and narrowly managed to avoid death. But even when someone survives a black mamba bite, the experience is extremely traumatic. Speaking to Newsweek, VORSTER said his body immediately began to go numb with pins and needles after the bite, and he became paralyzed as he struggled to take breaths. His hand even swelled to nearly twice its normal size. The snake that bit VORSTER was in the process of shedding its skin, which can impair a reptile's vision. This can make the creature feel more vulnerable and make them more likely to lash out. VORSTER reported that his recovery was going well, but he was taking a break from snake catching until he was fully healed. Number 9. Jeremy Sutcliffe. In 2018, Jennifer Sutcliffe was gardening outside her home in Corpus Christi, Texas, when she noticed a 4-foot rattlesnake enter the backyard. She called for her husband, Jeremy, who came outside and chopped the reptile's head off with a shovel. When he went to pick the creature up and dispose of it, the severed head sank its teeth deep into his hand and released all its venom. Jeremy immediately started having seizures, while Jennifer frantically called 911 and got him into their car. She rushed towards the hospital, but couldn't get there fast enough, and her husband ultimately had to be airlifted to the emergency room. At first, it wasn't clear whether Jeremy would survive. His kidneys were failing, and it didn't seem promising. In a desperate effort to save his life, doctors administered 26 doses of anti-venom and quickly put him on dialysis. They amputated 2 of his fingers and performed skin grafts in hopes of saving the rest of his hand. Miraculously, Jeremy pulled through, and to this day, doctors don't know how he survived. A year after the incident, he was no longer on dialysis, but still struggled with some lingering health issues, including pain and extensive nerve damage. The near-death encounter left Jennifer psychologically traumatized. Now, whenever she goes into her yard to garden, she's constantly on edge, and any slight movement that could possibly be a snake sends her into a panic. Hopefully, things will get easier for the couple as they continue along their path and heal. Number 8. John David Brock. Snake handling is a common practice at some Pentecostal churches throughout the U.S., especially in the southern Appalachian states. But the controversial tradition, which is supposed to be a demonstration of how God protects Christians from danger, has cost the lives of a few people over the years. 60-year-old John David Brock was handling a snake at a service in Jensen, Kentucky back in 2015 when the reptile bit him right in the arm. He foolishly declined medical treatment and instead went to his brother's house, where he died from the bite. Brock's death came a little more than a year after the pastor and reality TV star Jamie Coots died from a rattlesnake bite he got during a service in Middlesbrough, Kentucky. In 2012, 44-year-old renowned Pentecostal preacher Mac Walford was also bitten by a rattlesnake and passed away hours later, 30 years after his father died for the same reason. He had been bitten 3 times before, but never sought out medical help. This time, Walford avoided going to the hospital, but was rushed to the emergency room when it was clear he couldn't survive without help. But by the time he got there, it was already too late. These are just some of several snake handling related deaths that have happened in recent years. Unsurprisingly, the tradition has come under fire. Some congregations have been evicted from their rented properties for it, and some professional snake handlers have tried to warn the public of the dangers that come along with an untrained person going near a venomous reptile, as if they shouldn't already know this in the first place. Even more concerning, when someone is bitten by a snake during a church service, they almost always refuse medical treatment and just leave the matter in God's hands as a show of faith and trust. Unfortunately, as the examples we've discussed in today's video show, this usually doesn't turn out well for them. But there's only so much that can be done to stop those who truly believe in the practice, even if it's illegal in some of the places where it happens. But the devout continue to put their faith above the law and risk their lives in order to prove their faith. Number 7. Battle to the death. Jenny Hillman was on a walk outside near her home in Queensland, Australia, back in 2019, when she came upon 2 snakes who were caught up in a vicious battle. She pulled out her phone and quickly started filming the tense encounter between a red-bellied black snake and a much larger spotted black snake. Footage shows the red-bellied black snake trying to retreat and fight its opponent off as the brown snake latched onto its body. The larger reptile killed the red-bellied snake and won the battle, but had been bitten so many times that it seemed as though it wouldn't live much longer. We don't know for sure whether or not the victor survived, since Jenny's viral video cuts off right after the fight. One thing's for sure though, Mother Nature can be wild. Number 6. Protective puppy. Georgina Richardson's 2 sons were playing outside their home in Sumter County, Florida in 2019, when the family's 8-month-old pit bull, Zeus, lunged near her 10-year-old and started wrestling with something on the ground. At first, the boy thought his pup was just playing around with a rope, but it turned out to be a highly venomous coral snake. The reptile bit Zeus 4 times before he bit its head clean off and swallowed it. Georgina rushed the heroic pet to an animal hospital for anti-venom, but it was too late by the time they arrived, and he sadly died that day. All 6 family members gathered to say goodbye to their beloved canine companion and received a mold of his footprint to forever remember their hero pup. Zeus's death was tragic and devastating, but Georgina credited him with saving her son's life. Had he not stepped in and fought off the snake, it could have killed one of the children. The thankful mother said that she hoped her dog's brave act would help counter negative stereotypes about pit bulls and similar breeds, who are often portrayed as aggressive and inherently dangerous. Number 5. Josh Rose. 27-year-old Josh Rose was on a picnic with his kids in London back in 2017 when he saw a 3-foot-long adder snake beneath the children's cart. He tried to swat the reptile away, but it lunged at him and bit him on the finger. The next thing he knew, he was paralyzed and unable to speak. Rose collapsed to the ground and began foaming at the mouth as the snake continued to thrash around near the toddlers. He later told the son that he could hear people around him talking, but couldn't even open his eyes to look at them. A passerby drove the snake off with a stick and called for help. Emergency responders rushed Rose to the hospital while working to thin out his rapidly clotting blood as it reacted to the antivenom. By then, his pulse had dropped dangerously low. Doctors administered antivenom and admitted him to the intensive care unit for 24 hours. Rose later told the press that he felt like he had gotten hit by a truck, but he was thankful his kids didn't get bit. The adder is the only wild venomous snake in the UK. There have been 14 recorded deaths from adder bites since 1876, with the most recent happening in 1975. While most bites only require mild medical observation, severe cases like Rose's require antivenom. The recovery process can be grueling, especially for adults, who sometimes require up to 9 months to fully heal. Number 4. Simon Currat. A 6-year-old Colorado boy named Simon Currat was biking with his dad and sister recently when he went ahead of them. Suddenly, his dad heard him yell, "Rattlesnake!" But before the dad was able to catch up, Simon had been bitten. The frantic father scooped his little boy up into his arms and ran to the nearest neighborhood, where residents dialed 911 after hearing them scream for help. The local fire chief, Derek Chambers, was the first emergency responder to arrive on scene. Simon hadn't gone into cardiac arrest yet, but his condition was dire. Chambers called for a helicopter, and he was flown to the closest hospital. A few days later, Simon sadly gave in to his injuries. His devastated parents and 3 siblings were left reeling in pain and have been leaning on their grief-stricken church congregation for support through this unimaginably hard time. Around 200 people are bitten by rattlesnakes every year in Colorado, but casualties are rare. The tragedy prompted the state's Parks and Wildlife Department to publish a list of things people should and shouldn't do if they're bitten, including instructions for cleaning the bite and a reminder to keep the bite location level with the victim's heart to prevent the venom from spreading throughout the rest of the body. Number 3. Eugene DeLeon Sr. Texas snake handler Eugene DeLeon Sr. was performing at the Rattlesnake Roundup in Freer earlier this year when a rattlesnake bit him square in the shoulder. He was quickly flown to the hospital, where he spent 8 hours fighting for his life until he died from his injuries. De Leon had over 20 years of snake handling experience when he received the deadly bite and worked to remove snakes from people's homes, proving that even seasoned professionals risk their lives while interacting with the venomous reptiles. The Rattlesnake Roundup is a large festival that features rattlesnake-themed performances, feedings, and carnival activities. While anti-venom is widely available all across Texas, it has to be administered at a hospital and isn't kept on site. So those who choose to get up close and personal with rattlesnakes are taking their chances on whether or not they'll be able to receive treatment on time if they're bitten. Number 2. VAVA SURESH. VAVA SURESH is a famous wildlife conservationist and snake catcher from India who made a name for himself by relocating dangerous snakes out of populated areas. He had plenty of experience under his belt when he was bitten by a cobra earlier this year in the state of Kerala. He had been called to capture the creature when it sank its fangs deep into his flesh, right above his knee. Cobras are among the world's most dangerous snake species. Their venom isn't as potent as some other snakes, but a single bite can release enough to kill 20 people. Suresh went into cardiac arrest on his way to the hospital and was put on a ventilator. Doctors administered 65 vials of anti-venom, which is more than twice the average amount needed for a cobra bite. Because Suresh has been bitten by venomous snakes more than 250 times in his career, the treatment he required was complicated. In fact, doctors warned him in the past that if he continued to get bitten, anti-venom may stop working on him. Based on how much of it he needed this time around, it seems like that's exactly what's starting to happen. A few days after the bite happened, hospital worker T.K. Jayakumar told the Hindustan Times that he's now off the ventilator and breathing on his own, and that his condition seems to be improving, but he was still in the ICU. After a week in the hospital, Suresh was discharged with only minor lingering symptoms, including a mild fever. It's doubtful, though, that the dedicated snake handler will stop his life's work, but another bite could kill him, even if he gets treatment. Number 1. J. Brewer. Snake handler J. Brewer knew that a 20-foot reticulated piebald python would try to bite him while he tried to move it into a different enclosure at the Reptile Zoo in Fountain Valley, California. The snake was feeling especially protective over some eggs she had recently laid in a nesting box. In a video that he later posted to his Instagram account, Jay's Prehistoric Pets, he told the cameraman, "I guarantee at some point she is going to turn into Supermom on me." He also explained that handling the beast involved burning out her energy first. The protective mama lunged once at the cameraman before turning her attention to Brewer, who she repeatedly charged at, even biting his arm in the process. He was wearing a special coat designed to keep him as safe as possible, though, but was still left bleeding with visible puncture wounds from the snake's fangs. Luckily for Brewer, reticulated pythons are non-venomous, and the injury wasn't life-threatening. Thanks for watching. Would you rather get attacked by a vicious snake or get your foot ran over by a garbage truck? Tell us which one sounds worse in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. See you next time. Bye!